This is Water Elemental.
And this is Axis. And we're here today to talk about a couple of champions that were changed in the most recent patch drop. This is, of course, Kayle.
The Judicator, and Tryndamere.
The dude.
The dude that I don't... The Barbarian.
So, interesting changes. Some more rebalances to Kayle. And on Trynd's side, they put in a new resource system, but the resource system doesn't really come into play too terribly much, to be honest. But let's go ahead and go over. You know a little bit more about Kayle than I do, so why don't you kind of explain what they did?
Well, first what they did was they changed her passive. Holy Fervor originally, well, it's been changed for a third time now. What it first did was it would turn ability power into attack damage and attack damage to ability power. So throughout the game you would scale heavier, hitting harder and hitting with magic a lot harder. So she scaled throughout the whole game, so it was very nice. Now what it says is, Kayle's base attacks against enemy champions reduces their armor and magic resistance by 2% for 5 seconds. Stacks up to 5 times. This passive is horrible compared to her last passive. It's useless. And the thing is, it doesn't even proc right in the game at this point in time. It's
bugged.
It's bugged. It's a horrible passive. I did the math on average melee targets. I'm getting at least, probably maximum, 4 magic resist off of them. That's it. Compared to constantly being able to scale and have passive...
Yeah, I mean, when you look at other champions with similar things, I mean, Fiddlesticks removes a base 10. Amama reduces a base 20. Well, he used to, at least. I think it's 15 now, but... They really should have upped it to, if they're going to go with percentages, at least do 20 or 25%. Because, again, it's an external debuff, so it's not going to stack with your magic pen items as is, so that's not an issue. And 10% is nothing. It is nothing at all.
And it's very disappointing because, you know, I hit less and I don't scale more. There's no benefit to having this, and it hurts the champion. It really does. And it hurts how you have to build now.
Indeed.
Her first ability is her Q, Reckoning. Activate. Blast a target, dealing magic damage and slowing the movement speed by 35% for 4 seconds. While the target is slowed, Kayle inflicts 5% more damage to the target. Damage increase applies to summer spells and items used by Kayle. This is a little bit better than what it originally did. It would slow them down, but it didn't add a second effect to it. It would deal the damage and then just slow. Now you actually get a benefit of inflicting 5% more damage to the target, which is a great buff to her. I like it a lot more, and it scales 1-for-1 now off AP, so that's a lot better.
What I found that was interesting about this ability is it explicitly says while the target is slowed. So if they have CC reduction abilities, it will actually reduce the duration of that damage buff.
I still like it than how it used to be, where it was just a slow that, I think it was like a 20% reduction, so they increased it by 15, I think. But I don't have the exact numbers up right now. Her second ability, her W, is Divine Blessing. Blesses a target allied champion, healing them and increasing their movement speed for 2.5 seconds. The movement speed scales from 15, 17, 19, 21, and 23%, and has a 0.35 scaling per ability power. It's a lot better, increases the movement speed of the ally you heal. Unfortunately, it doesn't heal as much as it used to. And again, it kind of balances off both her Holy Fervor and the fact that they kind of tone down how much it scales from. It's kind of about the same range. I miss being able to heal more and giving the buff, but a bit faster movement will make a difference later on in games. So it's mixed bag again. It's one part she's gotten a buff, another part she was hindered. So finally, we have her Righteous Fury. This is her E ability. Kayle harnesses her Righteous Fury to increase her attack range by 400 to 525 for 10 seconds. These attacks splash, dealing additional magic damage to her target, and nearby units take a percentage of her attack plus magic damage. This splash does not affect turrets. This ability probably was the least affected. It scales off both AD and AP, but it doesn't make much sense now considering her passive doesn't utilize AD as much, and you're mainly going to be dealing AP damage. So it kind of, in this way, got nerfed. There's no real major difference to this when I've been playing with her.
Wasn't the range a little bit better that they made it?
A little bit better, but it's unnoticeable. It really isn't. You can poke from a little bit farther of a distance, but the main thing that they fixed with the Righteous Fury is they fixed her pathing, where she doesn't unintentionally start walking towards enemies you've targeted and wanting to do melee attacks. So they fixed that bug. That's probably the only thing I cared about through this whole patch change, is the fact that they fixed this one bug, which was really, really inconvenient and could cost games. Her ultimate is Intervention. Kayle bathes a target allied champion or herself in holy light, rendering them immune to all damage for a few seconds. Now, with this, it hasn't changed. It's essentially the same thing it's always been. You can put a bubble around someone and they'll be immune to damage for a certain amount of time, just as a quick lifesaver, or just to reduce a modest amount of AoE damage. It's great, it's still really good, and there's nothing much else to say because it hasn't changed. But my personal thoughts is Kayle has been hindered a bunch. There isn't really a reason they should have did what they did to make her better, quote unquote. Her passive's lackluster, her scaling is not as good as it should be because of that, and she's mainly an AP champion now instead of a healing hybrid. And it's very disappointing.
Yeah, before the whole point of playing Kayle is needed a bit of an AP boost, something like Teemo, but you didn't want the map awareness, you wanted a little bit more support with that, so you'd nuke through people with AP and then have that extra support just to help in team fights, maybe if you didn't have another support. And now she doesn't really have the punch she used to. You're better off playing a Nidalee character, even though she's not great in team fights. You'll still get that poking, that good burst, plus the support that you need and the map awareness. So at the end of the day, I think she's kind of fallen behind and she's lost her role just because she can't do it as effectively as she used to. You're better off playing a Nidalee or just going with Teemo and biting the bullet on the support.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm bringing her down from a 9 from our previous champion spotlight, and she's going down to a 5.
Oh, that's pretty cruel.
I played her the day before the patch and the day of patch, and I couldn't do as much, and it's pretty sad.
I mean, I'll give her a 6 just because, again, she's got an interesting sort of setup, but the nerfs hit her hard. It's essentially like not having a passive. And again, nerfed healing with slightly better returns on her AP, and because her passive again is changed, you're gonna run out of items to pick out for her very quickly because you no longer need AD items. It's kind of a waste of time.
And it's pretty sad because it used to 75% of the items in the game would synergize with her perfectly. Now to being set to probably
only a handful. So.
Yeah.
6 for me. Still fun to play. I've seen her. She's fine. I mean, you can play her, but she's not. You're not going to get the punch you used to have. You're not going to get the control or the support.
She handles better. That's the only positive.
Mm.
But her model remake looks a lot better. We've already talked that before. But she looks.
If you look cleaner. Great, and you still play terrible, then it doesn't mean you're good.
Next up, we have Tryndamere.
Tryndamere is a champion that a lot of people have problems with. They either say he's OP or he's stupid weak. I've never really been afraid of Tryndamere. He's a champion that's so easily shut down. It's silly at times. But he had a little bit of a rework. I wouldn't say an overhaul, but they've tweaked him a bit. They gave him a new resource system called Fury, somewhat similar to Renekton, except it has a decay. But they changed his passive, so he gets 0.35 crit chance per point of Fury he has. The Fury is capped at 100, as I recall. But let's talk about how Fury interacts with one of his abilities. First is Bloodlust. It permanently increases his attack damage and grants him bonus attack damage for every 1% of health he is missing. So it's a good attack boost there. But also has an activated effect that says he consumes all of his current Fury, and it restores health equal to the base amount plus extra health per fury consumed. It does scale off of ability power 1.5, but it is not exactly worth it to go AP on him. The extra heal increases per level from 0.5 at first level to 2.3 per at max level, so it is quite a massive heal if you stock it properly. His next ability is Mocking Shout. He decreases the surrounding enemy's attack damage, and if anyone is facing away from them, their movement speed is also reduced for 4 seconds. The attack damage reduction is quite large, especially as you get to lower, to higher ranks. And the attack speed, or the move speed slow rather, is kind of what lets him chase when Spinning Slash is down. It's a 60% slow at max rank, so it's actually quite effective. And even at low ranks, 30%, still quite large. It's better than Kayle slow.
Yeah.
Spinning Slash, sort of his signature move, spin to win, and there you go. He spins through enemies. He deals physical damage to everyone in his path, and the cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds whenever he critically strikes. It has a relatively long cooldown until you start getting those crits off, and you can do it very quickly. It scales 1-for-1 off bonus attack damage and ability power. Again, AP is not really worth it on him, but the bonus damage scaling is actually a very nice change for him. His final ability is his ultimate. It's called Undying Rage. Tryndamere instantly receives Fury and becomes immune to death for 5 seconds, during which his health cannot go below 1 point. It's usable when stunned, silenced, or even suppressed. This pretty much is what everyone knows him by and either QQs about or just kind of laughs at. Basically 5 seconds to auto attack, do whatever he wants, gets away. The thing about it now, I thought they were going to do a rework where Undying Rage was based on his Fury meter, so you could potentially get longer than 5 seconds with his Fury, but it turns out they basically didn't change a single thing about him, and instead they just made it, okay, well, rather than eating stacks of his damage, we're going to have his heal eat his crit chance, which is hit and miss. I mean, he no longer has that bonus crit damage, which I think is good, because I was kind of lucky crits at early levels on Tryndamere was a bit frustrating when he would get, a 300% damage crit at level 1 and you would be down 4 bars. But on the flip side, I think they could have worked around the Fury mechanic, have it play more in than just a health and a crit boost. They could have had to interact with abilities a bit more like they did with Renekton. So that's why I'm not calling this a rework. It's just
tweaking.
It's a tweak. And a tweak that they could have done much better. They could have made him a much more interesting character by having him interact with the resource system rather than being, meh, you get a little bit more crit chance, but as soon as you pop Undying Rage, you get full bars. It doesn't matter. So there's no penalty to the new system. It just means if you engage someone immediately, you won't be able to heal as much as when you start the fight. It's a disappointing change, but again, I'm not a big Tryndamere player, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. So it's not really going to affect his overall score. I do like that it's rebalanced a little bit. Tryndamere has always been a strong character, but he's a pub stomper at heart, so he's not very good against well-aware teams. And now that they know they can manipulate his heal and his resource effectiveness, I think it's going to hurt him a little bit more. So I'm going to keep him at about where I had him last time, about a 7.
Yeah, about the same. They moved things around. There wasn't actually tweaking. It's more or less if you have a box full of junk and you just kind of shuffle it a bit, you still got a box full of junk and nothing's really changed. So, you got a little nifty stuff. He has a new quote unquote, I've been doing that a lot in this review, changes to him, and it's the resource system doesn't really come into play like they wanted to, and it's kind of disappointing. It just kind of makes certain people have to relearn him and get used to the different bar, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's nothing new or interesting here. It's just a slight rebalance and a slight change to a champion that is otherwise okay, but really great in pubs, awful in ranked.
Yeah, I have problems with him in ranked games, not because I don't know what to do, it's because people don't know what to do with him, and he kind of just raffle stomps, but yeah, I tried playing him. I can't play him at all, so I respect those who can do really well with him. But
yeah, no, I agree. That's really it this week for far as champions go, I mean, Galio got buffed, but that wasn't really a rework. It was just a damage rescaling. And I'm looking forward to that epic Tryndamere skin. I have not seen it in game, but I'm hoping to soon. Soon-ish.
If you guys want us to go over any specific champion that has been reworked in any way, shape, or form,
Or maybe a champion we just never talked about, post it below. We'll see what we can do.
we would like to start this up again, try to get this going, because last time we tried to get it to go, we didn't get really any reaction, so we're like, eh.
We had some troubles.
So yeah, this has been the Champion Breakdown. This has been Water Elemental.
And this has been Axis.